All right, here we are with the KTM 1290 Super Duke R, and we did a review on this bike, kind of a walk around, so I'm not going to bore you with all those details. Basically, we're out here to do a ride review and give you kind of my thoughts on this bike. And let's get started. First of all, we'll kind of do a little quick walk around so you can hear that exhaust going. This is it idle. Really not too loud, just sitting here. Has a really great sound. It's kind of deep. You can hear that. And that is that. These bikes are a bit of a tall bike, so getting your leg over it, if you're a shorter rider, you might be pretty tippy-toed on this bike. Riding position is pretty well upright. If you look in a mirror while you're riding this bike, you're like, oh wow, I'm really sitting upright. Now in a parking lot, I want to tell you, this bike's a bit smoother. I smoothed out the power a bit. One of the things I've talked about is the little dongles and things you can buy and the remapping, and that all smooths out the lower end power. But I will still tell you, in a parking lot, these bikes basically suck. You've got to, basically, you're going to be modulating the clutch the entire time. They turn just fine, but they are wanting to go. It's not, it doesn't want to just sit there and idle readily and have nice easy power in the low end. So what I ended up doing is kind of trail braking. I got the clutch in about halfway, modulating that throttle a little bit, and then I can manage it quite easily. But those are some, it's concentrate on three things all at once can make it more intimidating around in a parking lot. So it's not the easiest thing around town. Not the easiest bike to ride around in a parking lot, even though it is a nice, smooth riding bike. People may disagree down there below, and if you want to, go ahead and give me your opinions as well. And you can also subscribe down there in the bottom. I think that's on the right-hand side of the screen there. Hit that subscribe button. You can also hit the bell icon. I'm going to do a bunch more videos and reviews. But right now, we're going to get this bike out and up onto the windy roads where it really does shine. All right, we're back out here on the windy road, and we're going to take a look at the riding the KTM Super Duke 1290R. Let me show you a couple of really quick things. You'll notice if you look down here, we got the traction control light on, and that is because I run that with the traction control off. I'm going through the display over here, which you probably can't see too well, but there is traction control on, traction control off. ABS I have on right now, and then there's a sport mode, a road mode, and a rain mode, and I've got it in sport mode. So in sport mode you get all the power all the time. You get traction control off, lets you use all that power. So let's give it a little bit of a ride here. And I'm trying to keep that front wheel on the ground as much as I can. Basically just hovering there, just off the ground. But it unleashes a beast of sound. So let's see, if I'm cruising right now and I put it in 6th gear, which is really lugging it at 55 miles an hour, it's nice and quiet and tame. And when you rev this thing out, it gets loud. I hope you guys can hear that, but it just screams, and it is so fast. So with the modifications that have been done to this bike on the dyno, we bring this to the dyno and put it in sport mode, turn the traction control off, and we have actually ABS off, but that doesn't really matter if you're on a dyno. At the rear wheel, 170 horsepower, and it's just constant 170 horsepower every run, boom, boom, boom. That's rear wheel horsepower. That's a lot more than stock. It's absolutely insane. And then one thing is, like, cruising along here, I put it in 5th gear, which is about right about 55. the throttle in sport mode is a bit what we call snatchy. It's kind of on and off. And it's the same around town if we have it in sport mode. It just seems to lurch a little bit, and on low RPMs it's just sort of like, yeah, on the power, off the power, on the power, off the power. That's kind of the way it was stock to a larger degree, but we smoothed all that out, and then in regular road mode you almost don't notice it. But it's not the smoothest motorcycle out there by a long shot. In fact, it's far from that, and that's a lot of people call it the beast, probably because of that. Once the RPMs are going up around 4,000 RPM, it's a nice smooth bike. Transitions through these corners really well. The bike's a lot more work to ride than a lot of other bikes. So we've got a review down there on the VFR 1200F, and that bike, absolute pleasure to ride, really easy to ride, not a lot of work involved. Now you're rewarded with a bit more work, and it creates a lot more fun. There's a more challenge to it, I guess. So here we go. This is a pretty rough little no drama there with this bike, that rough bridge crossing. So you get some rewards by driving a more difficult bike to ride in a sense, but you know, it's not that much. I just find it fun. I love this bike. It's real exciting for me to ride. I'm gonna kind of go up these turns here. The front end just comes off the ground just a little bit. I'm certainly not giving it full throttle at all. But it is exciting, it's a lot of fun, it is more work. I do say a bit more dangerous because it's not as friendly, but it's exciting. It is really exciting. Here's our policeman down there, down the road. But yeah, it's a fun, exciting bike to ride. It rewards you with that. It's got an upright seating position. This windscreen right here does not provide a lot of protection, but what it does is when the light is coming down this direction, which creates a glare, like if you're kind of going into the sun, it blocks that off of the dials here. When it's coming behind you, there's not much you can do, but this certainly does help for that, and it keeps a little bit of that wind off your chest. And then it brings it up on my standard helmet. It brings the wind up just over my the lip of my helmet and keeps it a lot quieter, so it really helps. As far as these mirrors go, these mirrors have a little bit of a tint to them that helps with a little bit of glare. And you know, aftermarket mirrors, these are the mirrors. They are probably on the more expensive side of the mirrors. They have a lot of adjustability, but you have to, like if you see here, there's a screw, this screw, they all have to be tightened up in that position, so you can't adjust it once you've got the mirrors on there, and that sort of sucks. Let's see, heated grips. So the heated grips are controlled through this. Oh, there's the drive mode. I have it in sport, and there's street and rain. I said road, but it's, and then the ABS mode is road right now, and road is front and back. There's also a setting for supermoto, so you can turn off the rear ABS. And then if I go through here, oops, that was heated grips, that's where I was going. Heated grips, you could have them on, medium, minimum, or maximum, and they work great. A little bit of expensive from KTM, but hey, you know. And then there's a warning, not legal. That's one of the dongles that I have in there. So the ABS dongle, you plug that in, and it always says not legal. I don't know, that's whatever. They're a cute little way of doing it. So let's continue back down, and you know what I'm going to do? There'll be a bit of a difference. We'll put this in, let's see here. I'm going to go through our ride mode. I went all the way down here to drive mode, and I'm going to put it in street mode. Okay, and then one other thing I will do is we will go to the traction control, and I'm going to set traction control on. Now there's two things here that have reduced power, so it's not going to let me spin the rear wheel, and it's going to reduce the amount of power I have, so I'll have more like 130 horsepower or something like that versus 170, and it'll cut power if it senses that back wheel spinning, which it wants to do all the time. So it really will cut the amount of power you can use. Now with the policeman there, we'll probably keep a nice mellow pace here a little bit. I don't see him behind me or anything, but a little bit more mellow than normal. We got this guy out in the middle of the road. Hello. And you can tell it's pretty quiet when I cruise along at under 6,000 RPM. Very quiet. I can hear the wind blowing. It sort of changed the whole mannerism. The throttle's not snatchy anymore. It's nice and smooth. It's not quite as aggressive. I mean, I still have the handling I want, but the bike's not overly aggressive in the throttle. Like it on the gas, it doesn't lift the front wheel. It really is you get that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Now it still is a fast bike, but even if you take and set this in rain mode, it still has quite a bit of power. It'll really keep you from spinning that wheel at all, and that's a good thing in the rain. But I definitely would not recommend this motorcycle to somebody that's new to riding, that is for sure. I think it's a motorcycle that you would decide to ride as you've gotten your riding skills to a certain level where you're like, you kind of want to be challenged. You want a real exciting bike to ride, but you still want to have some of that challenge. Now, and I say challenge in a good way. It's not like it's, you know, a hard, I don't know what, it's not like it's a bad bike to ride or anything. It's awesome, but it's certainly not for a novice or beginner rider, and I wouldn't recommend it for that type of person. And so for those, there's a lot of, you know, bad elements to it. You know, it's not super predictable on the throttle for a new rider. It is certainly predictable for an advanced rider because you just need to understand how to control your throttle. If you're lugging it going into corners and getting on and off the gas, you could actually push yourself a little bit with that extra power, and you might go out of a corner. Anyways, that, my friends, is the KTM 1290 Super Duke R. Boom. I think there's one final note. Sorry, hello. One final note about this bike. I didn't mention, like, hey, who is this bike right for? And I think that if you want a bike that is completely mad, completely insane, no holds bar, completely lunatic motorcycle, this is the bike for you. If you want something that is precise and more like a scalpel than, say, a hatchet, then you probably want something else. But this bike is an absolutely lunatic's motorcycle. and it's freaking rocks.